저는 개인적으로 경험한 것들을 조형 언어로 풀이하고 있는 조이소입니다.
Hi, my name is Nguyen. I'm an artist currently based in Maryland, United States. My practice is currently rooted in drawing. I utilize common materials like standard 8.5 by 11 inch sheets of paper and graphite to render images that, for me, explore the psychological contours and tensions of pending changes, of looming disruptions, moments of consequence that are about to happen.
My name is Daan Couzijn. I'm an artist originally from the Netherlands, and I'm currently based between Paris, France and Bern, Switzerland. If I would have to describe my practice, I would say that it evolves very much around the notion of authenticity. The fact that I'm often, as an artist, torn between the need and the expectation to achieve authenticity, and at the same time also the postmodern conviction that perhaps there's no such thing as authenticity because all ideas are referential.
제 기억이 맞다면 한 1년 정도는 주어졌던 것 같거든요. 그러니까 2025년 내내 저는 내가 좀 이런 것들을 꾸준히 해왔구나, 이런 얘기들을 지속해왔구나 라는 것들을 여러 가지로 볼 수 있었고, 뭐 가령 재료 측면에서는 저는 한 22년 그때쯤부터 이제 장식부자재를 그때부터 썼다고 생각하고 있었는데, 다시 생각해 보니까 계속 꾸준히 써왔더라고요. 스스로도 몰랐던 좀 지속적으로 뭔가 연결되는 것들이나 아니면 뭔가 형태적인 것들에 있어서도 그렇고, 파라-자기'는 타인과 본인에 대한 어떤 경계에 대한 얘기이기도 하고, 그렇기 때문에 그 DID 시리즈가 do의 하다, 내가 뭘 하다의 과거형 did로서도 DID지만 해리성 인격 장애를 dissociative identity disorder고, 퍼스널 이펙트 같은 경우는 더 이상 당사자에게 반환되지 않는 물건들의 뉘앙스로 사망신고서나 병원, 경찰 기록으로서의 제도 언어에 주로 사용된다. 뭔가 사망한 인물의 증명 소지품들 같은 거죠. 가령 제가 작업들에 쓴 것들은 사실 그런 물건들이거든요. 제가 썼던 물건, 받았던 물건, 갖고 있던 것들, 내가 아닌 것들인데 이것들이 나를 사실은 지금 시점에까지도 이것들이 나를 증명해 줄 수 있겠구나라는 생각들을 또 하면서 재료 당위성에 대한 작업을 했습니다.
So when the curatorial premise of the exhibition was first introduced to me, I was immediately attracted to this implication of a separate self, or a version of ourselves that exists parallel to what we choose to embrace or to portray. In imagining how my own work would fit into that idea, it called to mind our political subconscious, the version of ourselves that lies awake at night, resenting the uneasiness of our manufactured political and social realities, imagining the possibilities of new realities, but at the same time, these alternate versions of ourselves are oftentimes leashed or very overly neatly packaged and then presented in our day-to-day public-facing lives. So I knew I wanted to include works that straddled this line between dreams and reality, between possibility and limitation, between desire and discomfort.
The works that are shown at the Para-Jagi group exhibition at A-Lounge Contemporary in Seoul are part of a series called Please Take Nothing But Memory. And for this series, I worked with a team of art restorers, and together we've developed a pigment transfer technique which allows us to chemically lift superficial layers of dirt, varnish, but also pigments off of an antique painting, and to transfer these superficial layers onto a new canvas. And these canvases is what I use to create new works, and that's what you see in this exhibition.
모든 사람에게 그렇지 않을까요? 이게 하나의 인격체는 그 사람이 수십 년 동안 만들어온 그 사람의 세계인데, 우리가 관계를 맺는다고 했을 때 가장 대표되는 거는 이 성애적인 연애 관계로서의 관계를 말하기도 하니까, 가령 어떤 타인과 내가 관계를 갖게 됐을 때 이거는 세계가 충돌을 하는 것이기 때문에 저는 거기를 뭔가 거닌다 쳤을 때 저에게 모국은 저 자신이기 때문에 항상 저는 이방인이 되는 경험을 그 관계에서 할 수밖에 없단 말이죠. 그래서 뭔가 보통 사람들이 뭔가 연애를 하면은 사람이 되게 여러 가지로 교훈도 얻고 성숙해지고 여러 가지 뭐 감정의 변화도 사실 가장 큰 게 그런 관계니까 다른 새로운 섬이 생기는 것 같아요. 뭐 비유를 하자면 무인도였던 데를 하나 둘씩 그러니까 관계를 갖는 사람들끼리 찾아가면서 거기 이제 집 짓는 공사를 하는 거죠. 인테리어 공사를 하기도 하고 나무도 뭐 몇 그루 심고 안정된 곳을 찾을 수도 있겠지만 또 거기를 떠나면서 거기는 또다시 무인도가 될 수도 있겠죠. 그런 관계를 반복하다가 다들 죽는 거 아닐까요? 나의 역사에서 성 정체성은 자기 형성의 일부가 아닌 존재를 떠받치는 근본적인 기둥이었다. 나는 언제나 그것으로부터 상처받았고 많이 아파하며 컸기에 라고 시작을 하는데 그러니까 이제 그게 나한테 힘들었다잖아요. 그러니까 저는 좀 그걸 순탄하게 지나는 뭐 성소수자도 있겠지만 저는 디나이어를 좀 강하게 겪었던 편이라서 오스카 와일드의 말을 빌리면 그 사람이 고통만이 인간이 살아있음에 대한 유일한 보증이다 라고 말을 했었거든요. 어떤 상처받고 고통받는 것에서 사람은 되게 많은 것들을 깨닫고 변화시키고 어떻게 보면 생존자라는 타이틀을 가질 수 있으니까 자기애가 좀 보통 사람보다 강할 수밖에 없다고 저는 생각을 하는 편인데 그러다 보니까 그것들이 제가 뭔가 작업을 할 때 꺼내는 이야기들이 퀴어적인 것들과 관련돼서 나올 수밖에 없는 것 같고 저는 퀴어들의 삶이 그리고 오픈리 퀴어들의 삶이 외골격 곤충 같다고 생각했어요. 가장 안에 있는 걸 가장 바깥으로 근데 그런 식으로 이야기들이 나오는 것들이 어쩌다 보니 내가 그걸 뱉고 있는 그러니까 말해야지 해서 말하는 느낌보다 어느샌가 그냥 제가 그걸 중얼거리고 있고 말을 하고 있는 느낌이라고 해야 되나.
So the mosquito has really been an important recurring motif in my work, and it sits at the intersection of a lot of themes. So anxiety and discomfort are definitely part of that, I'd say, since in the US and many other parts of the world, we have a very strong, precarious reaction to mosquitoes. Like my first reaction is to just swat at them, to kill them, or to get away from them. But at the same time, I think our associations with mosquitoes are similar to our associations with queerness and with the tropics. Mosquitoes are culturally associated with disease, with the night and darkness, with heat and sweat. They suck on bodily fluids. They're widely regarded as pests, and yet at the same time, they also play this vital role in our ecosystems as a major food source for other species that we really depend on. They play a vital role as pollinators. Mosquito-borne diseases might be responsible for a huge number of human deaths per year, but things like poverty and rapid urbanization and deforestation in the tropics, those things play a huge role in the spread of these diseases, and they're often a result from resource extraction, wealth extraction. I think that's all really important information to remember as well. And I think as somebody who is queer and as somebody whose family is from the tropics, from Vietnam and Laos, these contradictions between cultural associations and reality, they resonate really strongly with me, which is why mosquitoes have frequently reappeared across a lot of my drawings over the years. Queerness and tropicality are frameworks for me to think about how to resist normativity in the status quo, how to resist colonial norms of structure, of control, of regulation. The creases and tears in my works are the result from the act of folding up, storing, and carrying my works from one place to another. When I first started folding up my drawings, it was during the lockdown period of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I was making work in my apartment, and I needed to fold up my works on both fabric and paper as I worked on them to conserve space. But even after lockdown ended, I found myself continuing to fold up my works, especially the ones on paper, to carry them around with me, sometimes even handing them off to other people to continue accumulating these folds and tears, because I felt that there was something significant in the act of folding something up to put it away for later, taking it back out, putting it away again, and then repeating the cycle over the course of years. It made me think about things like letters, photographs, documents, paper ephemera that we carry with us across borders, oceans, across relationships and generations. It was a way for the materiality of the 8.5 by 11 inch sheets of paper to resist and complicate the neat standardizations of their own dimensions, similarly to the very images that I draw onto them. So to answer the question, I'd say that it's both something that is anticipated and coincidental. I think at this point in my practice, I know that at least some of my works will end up getting folded, but I can't always predict the exactness of the folds. That's more contingent on how often they're being folded, whether it's hastily or carefully, who is even folding them, and what they're being stored in or transported in, whether it's a box, a suitcase, a luggage, a small bag, or even a pocket.
I'm really interested in the idea of authenticity not as a stable essence, but rather as construct that is continuously renegotiated between origin and perception. And there is this one quote or paragraph, the artwork is not an endpoint, but rather part of a continuous chain of contributions. And I think that's exactly the field that I operate in with my artistic practice. I find it very fascinating how this strong desire for truth and originality and authenticity can persist within this postmodern condition that basically renders all images as referential. And that is really something I try to express in my work with every project that I do. My methodology often involves the reappropriation of existing materials and images, and the resulting works, in my opinion or in my view, are not necessarily restorations, nor are they reproductions, but I see them as hybrid artifacts that complicate distinctions between original and copy, fiction and memory, sincerity and performance. And I see the works really as part of an ongoing conversation. It's not that the original has ceased to exist after I've approached it within my artistic practice. It continues to exist, but I add something to the conversation. I add something to its story. In a visual way, I always see it like there is this path of the original artwork, and when I intervene, this path is split because the original artwork remains and the work that I create leads a path or starts a path of its own. That's always how I visually imagine my work to be part of the original artwork's context. I like the idea of authorship not only being in the way that you produce an image from scratch, but that authorship can also lie in the orchestration of processes, of references, of decisions that shape how an image comes into being. And I think to be the orchestrator of that, there's also an authorship that lies in there, and that's how I see myself also as an author in the works that I create. I think images are never autonomous or original in complete isolation. I think they are always constructed from existing visual languages, from existing histories and systems. And so in my practice, authorship kind of shifts from making to positioning. I'm choosing sources, I'm defining constraints, I'm allowing certain transformations to occur, and I decide when a work is finished. Me as an artist, I'm rather a mediator than I am the origin of the artwork. Obviously, these are huge technological developments that have and will alter our lives entirely. I recognize that. But in a way, I feel like not much has changed when it comes to the way that we relate to images and the way that we create images and the way that we view the authenticity of images. And that's simply because, in my opinion, the process of image generation shows something or makes visible something that is already happening and was already happening in our brains way before the arrival of AI, generative adversarial networks. It's precisely because I believe inspiration and ideas do not appear in isolation, but they take shape and they are formed by the external factors that influence and inspire us. One could already see the idea or the image that you create as a product of, or as a mix-up of all the things that you're inspired by. And so what AI does and what algorithm-based image generation does is basically what was already happening in our heads when we were creating images for ourselves before the age of AI.
개인적으로 조금 사소하면서도 강한 영향을 저한테 준 전시가 아닌가라고 생각을 해서 이 전시도 그렇고 이 시기로 인해서 저는 좀 그 이후의 작업들이 또 많이 달라지지 않을까라는 생각을 하고 있습니다. 감사합니다.
I just wanted to say thank you to 𝙧𝙖 and to 𝙧𝙖 for including my work in this exhibition with such a compelling curatorial framework and alongside the two wonderful other artists. It means a lot for me to be showing my work in Korea for the first time, especially with work that I really care a lot about. And if there's one thing that I hope for viewers to consider after viewing the exhibition and seeing my work, it is the significance of moments of tension, discomfort, of moments of dreaming of something more, of knowing that something isn't working or doesn't feel right. I think that there's really incredible potential for political and social change in these moments of suspended animation where things are waiting to happen. If we just listen to how we feel about what's happening around us and trust that what we're feeling is significant and worthwhile and meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this video. Many, many thanks to Min Lee and Dae Kim of 𝙧𝙖 Contemporary for inviting me to be part of this show. It's been an absolutely wonderful and pleasant experience, and I'm very proud to be part of this group show. If you haven't seen it, please go and visit it. I hope you'll enjoy it, and I very much hope I'll be back in South Korea soon. Perhaps we'll meet again. Thank you.
그렇게 하게 되는 말해야 되나? 그래서 자연스럽게 하는 거 아닌가?
And algorithms and GANs, or GANs, I don't know how to, the Netherlands, currently based in